let me just open the questions for our audience. The first question that we have is from Menaka. She asks, would like to know more about L&D strategies and sources that provide such facilities during work from home scenario or the hybrid working scenario that is likely to be the future. So do you want to take this first?
Can you just repeat the question, please?
Menika, she asked, would like to know more about L&D strategies and sources that provide such facilities during work from home scenario or hybrid working scenario and is likely to be the future.
Okay, so I'm looking at it from three dimensions. The first thing is how do we train people to adapt to this entire new way of working? So we've realized that when we move to this new way of working, there are a lot of behaviors and mindset related issues that need to be addressed because you're working in a totally new atmosphere. So I think they need to be trained on this, or whichever job family is going to be identified to be working from home. The second important thing is we were talking about learning becoming more individualized, personalized in nature. So I think when we leverage this technology, there will be a lot of freedom for employees to learn at their own pace. So while they're working from home, it gives them an opportunity to learn at their own pace because they're not, all of them need not come into the room at one time, so they can learn at their own convenience and pace. So how do we provide these opportunities become very, very important. However, I personally feel we should also give opportunities for them to learn from one another. So how do we focus more on social learning and look at opportunities like doing some kind of virtual trainings or using a video conference kind of a training. So how do we all, because there is a lot of mutual learning that happens, and I think as an organization we should help them to leverage that. So that can happen largely through social learning or organizing some kind of blended learning opportunities. So I think these are three which I'm looking at.
Amit, do you want to add something to this?
And I think Sudhir covered a lot of it. I think the key to, technology can be a good enabler here. So providing access to the right set of tools and, while, yes, personalizing the learning experience, it is also important to be able to provide the responsibility to the learners. So they have to be, I would say, talked to and made make sure that they understand that responsibility also lies with them, in some part. So L&D can not any longer just take care of all of this on their own. It is a huge challenge for them too. And I think the growth will only happen if the employees also feel that they need to do this on their own. So I think that mindset change, as Sudhir mentioned, that behavior change has to happen. And along with that change, the right set of tools, technologies, right set of content, interactivities, interactions, videos, a lot of things. There are so many things available in the world today. Combining them, curating them for your company, for your workforce, and in parallel, making sure the employees understand why we are doing this, and they understand the end game of the entire exercise. That would be really important.
Okay, moving on to our next question. Anu has two questions in one question. The first part, she's asking what contribution leadership can make in contributing to the employee engagement strategy. And the second part is what are the types of L&D trainings that have been more effective in the work from home scenario? Sudhir, would you like to answer this?
So I think in terms of second question, we sort of addressed that in the earlier question itself. It's just the first question about leadership. Let me tell you, they have to champion the employee engagement. They have to own the employee engagement. because the moment they own it, a lot of other things will fall in place, and it sort of gets embedded into the organization strategy. Otherwise, there'll be isolated incidents. Okay, I have to do something, so I have to have a recognition. I have to have a one training program. I have to organize some bonding. So they'll become all isolated events or interventions. Only when the leadership owns it and champions it, the entire employee engagement gets integrated with the business strategy and organization strategy. So I think they play a very, very critical role there.
Amit, do you have something to add here as well?
I think just that leadership, they have to also be able to show in a genuine manner that this has affected them in the same way as anybody else. As I said in the beginning, everybody in the end is a human being, and the leadership has to. While yes, we have to project a strength that we have this in control. We also have to empathize with everyone in the same light. They have to understand that we're all in the same boat. Leadership is not in a different boat and they have a different situation. I think, so championing, as you said, championing the engagement strategy right from the core of it is definitely what leadership has to do, needs to do. They cannot escape that fact. And while doing that, it will only kind of make people more assured about their place in the company. It'll also tell them that, the leadership is really, really aware of what is happening and is taking care of the fact. So I think that is very important.
Great. Our next question is by Surya. He asked, other than yearly training calendar, how could you entice for self-driven learning that can add value to core functions? Sudhir, again, do you want to take this first?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that?
So he's asking, other than yearly training calendar, what could entice for self-driven training that can, add value to the core function? Like he's basically asking about how you can drive the learning yourself.
Okay.
I think there is a network lag from Sudhir. Amit, would you want to answer this first?
Okay, so I'm
Sure.
sorry. So there is one which is about, yeah.
No,
I think Sudhir is back.
Shruti.
Do you want to answer that question?
Yeah. So one thing is about calendars, but what is very, very important is how do we align our L&D programs with what business needs? So that's where the entire customization of programs become play a very, very important role. So what we normally do is we say, okay, everybody needs communication skills, so let's run a communication program. Everybody needs interpersonal skills. So the moment we focus more on the need based. It could be a business requirement, it could be a team requirement. It is something maybe a specific business head is asking for it, one vertical is required. So the moment we start customizing these inputs, building those programs, then I think we will be able to, number one, look at the ROI. Second thing is the onus also would shift on the participant to come and attend this. So the calendar program are there. Whether you want to attend or you don't want to attend, it's up to you. But these are customized. So what we're saying is, hey, we are doing this for you, right? So then the entire pull factor becomes much higher.
Amit, would you want to add your insights as well?
Yeah, I think it's more about shifting the not just for the employees but for the entire company, shifting the focus from training to learning, and it's an investment the company needs to make in. And again, it's not going to be an easy change. It's a slow change. It's a culture change. So the key part is that employees should understand very clearly that the learning is always done for your own growth, and in the process you do your work better. You do either things faster or better, or either for yourself or for the customers. So it's a slow change, and again, it involves a lot of factors, right from coaching, mentoring, to able to display very, very constantly that this is something which everybody is doing and we have to do. So it's a culture change, because training is something which is defined by a team and then given to a lot of people. But learning is something which has to be coming from inside, that I need to learn something new because of this in future. And a lot of companies have done that in the last few months, I think. And it is not difficult, but it is not an immediate change. It just can't happen in a day or two. It's a big culture change. So, and that's where L&D, and the focus on the engagement factor will really be helpful, because making everybody understand the reason why it is to be done and what will be the impact of that on the individual's own growth and the company. I think those things will definitely motivate employees to learn on their own, more than they could have done before.
Yes, absolutely. Reading more questions from the audience. Babita here has a question. We've covered a lot of aspect of this, but let me just repeat the question again. How do we make learning and development a key concept within the organization, and how leadership can drive this importance of learning from top down? Sudhir, would you like to add some points here?
I think part of it, I think we've covered in the earlier question. So how do we shift the focus, from L&D to an individual and from training to learning? But I think the two things. One is leadership looking at this as part of their entire strategy is number one. Second thing is they themselves. Looking at their own development areas and focusing on their own development, it shows that learning does not stop at a certain level. At every level, there is a certain amount of learning that is required. So I think if they themselves show a lot of interest in this, it is something like it reflects their interest in learning, and it sort of trickles down across the organization. So number one, they championing it. Second thing is they themselves participating in working on their own self-development becomes very, very important.
Amit, what are your thoughts on this?
I think Sudhir covered that, I think completely. So nothing really to add as of now.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. How has hybrid changed the way we see employee engagement and learning? Do you want to answer that question?
How does hybrid?
How has hybrid changed the way we see employee engagement and learning? I think there is a network lag again happening from Sudhir's end.
I think I'll be on that question. Amit, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so I think as we discussed in the very beginning, hybrid in fact is the reason why everything has now changed, because the way we used to do things, even work, learn, train, all has changed now. We don't have the classes anymore. We're not in the same campus anymore. There's a lot of technology which we have to get used to now, and so fully work from home or fully work from office are still okay to manage, but hybrid makes it more complex, because you may have a part of your company in office, a part of your company not in office. So I think everything we do, if you look at the way we look at learning and development, it has to be redesigned, because it is like a fundamental change to the way things are right now. So it has a huge impact on how we looked at learning and development interactions earlier.
Okay. So taking the last question for this particular session, I think we covered this question also, but just parting way thoughts on this. This question, why learning has become more and more digitized, how we can keep human approach to learning intact, great learning experience, knowledge sharing, and putting learning into action. So did you want to take this?
Yeah, so I think that's become a major challenge now, because we're moving everything virtual, this human element. But I think it has to run through the entire intervention, this human element. So in multiple ways we can look at that. Number one is having a blended approach of learning would really help. The second thing is providing them opportunities for social learning and knowledge sharing. I think that sort of creates a lot of human approach, human touch. The other thing is we focus a lot on, we don't do it for all the programs, but there are certain programs where we focus on peer learning. So what we do is, out of 16 people, there are two of them, they're paired, two or three, they could be in pairs or triads. So we build those small groups and we ensure we sort of put an element of continuous learning. So it is not just they come and attend a program, but there is something beyond that, either working on a project or working on some other assignments, or there is continuous learning, and after which they have to come back and then for another peer group coaching kind of session. So these are multiple ways in which we can actually bring about that human element. But then ultimately, when you talk about the effectiveness of this program, I think it has to finally tie up with some kind of pre and post evaluation. It is not possible for all the programs, but I think wherever possible, if we can embed a pre and post evaluation, either using Kirkpatrick model or just using one level of that model, or just take the manager's inputs pre and post. It varies from program to program. I think we can also look at the effectiveness of this program.
Amit, do you have some quick points to add here before we close the session?
Just to add, like even in the learning programs, as Sudhir mentioned, we have to find ways to increase the collaboration element. As simple as maybe break out groups of small groups, as you mentioned, or even on a very practical level. Sometimes we have programs where it is compulsory to have the cameras on, because that, while yes, we have to do best with what we have today, we can't meet, but we can still see each other. I think that has some human element, and people are getting used to that. But finding more opportunities to collaborate, to communicate, as a part of the learning process, that also is very helpful.